Connor, we a year ago, late July, it was the Texas-Oklahoma SEC story that Brent Zerneman broke from the Houston Chronicle, and of course it has really been feeding college football. It did for a long, long time. Here, as far as I say here, within the Big 12, the conference has kind of moved on with their expansion. Yes, Texas and Oklahoma are here for at least another year, 2 or 3. What is the thought in the SEC? How much is that even brought up on maybe a daily or during meetings basis?
Sure. So I think with the announcement that the ACC was going to be abolished, well, with the expected announcement that the ACC was going to abolish divisions, which was first reported by Brett McMurphy, I think all of a sudden we kind of turned the page and said, oh, well, when's the SEC going to do this? Or would the SEC make this happen? We found out, of course, that the Big 12 was also having this, $17 to $20 million potential buyouts for the likes of UCF, Houston, and Cincinnati to be able to join the conference early. But that situation, and the more you kind of realize this, it's really different with Texas and Oklahoma. And there's not this same sense of urgency because the deal's done. Like it's happening. They're at least coming to the SEC in 2025. We know that. It's all signed, sealed, delivered. But could they get bought out of that contract? I don't necessarily think there's going to be that sense of urgency from Greg Sankey's standpoint, because it's like you would have to be talking about $100 million at least per school to have to try and pay the Big 12 for that. And then you're talking about adding two more teams and having a 16-team super conference when we still only have a 14 playoff. So I don't think there's that sense of urgency from Greg Sankey's standpoint. And I think that they're going to maybe hold off and not necessarily push that, before it needs to be done. And they'll let the Big 12 kind of deal with their weird, awkward 2-year scheduling format.
Well, yeah, because there was a thought initially, well, the SEC will throw a life raft with Oklahoma. Texas probably has the money to pay for both of them, but they won't. And then again, why? There's no rush. The SEC's fine without them for right now. They eventually going to get them.
Yeah, I mean, the deal's done. It's not like they're still negotiating. If they were still at the negotiating table, this would be a different story. They're not. They're coming on board. Like Greg Sankey did his job. He's like, all right, you know what? We pulled this off. We made this happen. We don't have to get any more people on board. Yeah, I mean, it'd be great in a perfect world if they didn't have to pay that massive buyout. But at the same time, I think they're kind of looking at the situation going, hey, we also don't want to cannibalize. We don't want to jeopardize our chances of having one team at least in the college football playoff, or even 2 teams. So why do we necessarily need this 16-team conference when we're still going to be stuck at a 4-team playoff? I think Greg Sankey is kind of looking at these moving pieces and understanding that the urgency might not necessarily be there.
Connor, what do you think of the plans to eliminate the conference championship games in terms of the way that they were set up and allowing conferences to do it on their own? We've already seen the ACC, the Pac-12's already starting to react. The Big 12's been, just having the 2 best teams because they haven't had divisions, and now they're kind of on pause with the idea of moving forward with divisions because of that. How do you think the SEC approaches that? Does it stay status quo, or do they think about maybe different options?
I think they'll definitely have to think of different options when Texas and Oklahoma come on board. They might stand pat until that time comes. I don't think they're just going to get rid of divisions for the sake of getting rid of divisions. I think once they change the scheduling format, when Texas and Oklahoma are on board, then that's when they're going to have that conversation. Then either have the pods, the 14 pods, or they're going to have a system. What I advocated for was not having any divisions at all, just scrapping divisions, and then having the 1 rivalry and then 7 rotating home and homes. That way you're having all of these kids at least get to go to an SEC campus once during a 4-year stretch instead of what it currently is. I mean, think about this, guys. Texas A&M joined the SEC in 2012. Georgia's first trip to College Station will be in 2024. I mean, that's what's the point of that? Yeah. You're not even in the same conference if you're doing that. The SEC is not going to get further removed from that by adding Texas and Oklahoma. That's not going to happen. They're going to come up with a new system. In my opinion, that would be the best. I realize that'd be scrapping, potential rivalries like Alabama and LSU, but still getting to play teams more regularly in your conference. The SEC is going to trend in that direction. It's just a matter of what exactly it's going to look like.
Texas has kind of always, and people say this, run the Big 12. They've had clout. We know they've had the hammer, Oklahoma as well. When they walk into the same room with everybody in the SEC, how many of those teams, programs, universities, campuses will look them straight in the eye and say, not here?
All of them. Look, I mean, even Mizzou, even Eli Drinkwitz kind of has that attitude, that chip on his shoulder. and he's not shy about going into the state of Texas and trying to recruit there. Look, no team in the SEC is going to back down to Texas. That's just not going to happen. Like, congratulations, you're able to fill your stadium. South Carolina fills 80,000 fans when they're coming off of a 2-win season, and it's 95 degrees in Columbia, and it's the hottest place on earth. So you're not going to impress anybody in the SEC by showing that money and being able to say, oh, we've done this, this, and this. Nah, in the SEC, it's all about getting those victories. That's all this conference cares about. If you're not consistently producing a quality program, which, let's be honest about Texas, it hasn't. When you haven't had a player drafted on the offensive side of the ball in the first round since 2006, you have a tough time getting respect from your elders. But that's what ultimately this situation is going to be. It's going to be probably a really similar reception to the one Texas A&M got. Yeah, cool, great, you fill up your stadium. Show that you can kind of, prove yourself on that stage. And Texas A&M did that year one with Johnny Manziel, of course. But I think Texas will have a little bit of a tougher time being able to kind of push its weight around.
Connor, I know this is kind of out of nowhere. Obviously,